translation there, number 4. Please tell me, Vidura says to Uddhava, whether the original personalities of Godhead who incarnated themselves at the request of Brahmā, who was born out of the lotus flower from the Lord, and who have increased the prosperity of the world by elevating everyone, are doing well in the house of Śūrasena. Yesterday's verse is talking about the fact that Vidura knew that, I guess, the battle of Kurukshetra had already taken place, and that all of his family members, and Duryodhana, Shakuni, all of the Kaurava's soldiers, everybody had just been annihilated like that. So his questions were more psychological than factual, But the Yadu dynasty still, I think, is there. They won't leave for another, 25 years or something, until Krishna to leave the planet. So this seems to be, of course, Uddhava's already marching off. So he's already seen Krishna, so Krishna's already left too. So I guess, everybody's left. This is quite some time later than maybe 25 years after the Battle of Kurukshetra, everything, getting the dates together. But both dynasties, Yadus and the Kauravas, have both actually disappeared when he's asking these questions. So he knows about them, but he's still asking the questions. Okay, purport. Lord Krishna and Balaram are not two different personalities of Godhead. God is one without a second, but he expands himself in many forms without their being separate from one another. They are all plenary expansions. The immediate expansions of Lord Krishna, the immediate expansion is Baladev. And Brahmā, born from the lotus, from Garbhodaksha Vishnu, is an expansion of Baladev. This indicates that Krishna and Balaram are not subjected to the regulations of the universe. On the contrary, the whole universe is under their subjugation. Okay, slide number 6. Slide number 6 here. Picture of Vasudeva and Devaki in the prison. They appeared at the request of Brahmā to liberate the burden of the world, and they relieved the world by many superhuman activities so that everyone became happy and prosperous. Without the grace of the Lord, no one can become happy and prosperous. Because the happiness of the family of the Lord's devotees depends on the happiness of the Lord, Vidura first of all inquired about the well-being of the Lord. And it's a nice picture if you can see it. You're looking on the internet, sometimes you find some very nice pictures. And this one, of course, appears to be Krishna and Balaram with Devaki and Vasudeva. And very nice. Vasudeva appears to be very, very Kshatriya, tall, handsome person. And Baladeva is embracing him. And Devaki appears to be a very beautiful person. Kissing Krishna. And Krishna is pointing to this guy on the side there with his tools. You have to go ahead and break open these ankle cuffs like that. So next picture. Yeah. So next slide, number 8. A little detail here. I see in the back maybe Akrura, or somebody standing there, and then guards and so on. So now Krishna's he's come back to his real family. See that? His real family, his biological family. He was being protected in Vrindavan during all these persecutions of Kansa. And now he comes back and see that so many people, Kansa was ruling over Mathura with the help of many demons, devils, and like that, who were not even probably human beings. And he was keeping all the human beings and everybody else terrified by his power. And it says that many people would come to Kamsa to criticize the situation like that, but Kamsa was so diplomatic and everything else that instead they would become his followers. So he had some Shakti to bewilder people into being, bad in different ways. But probably would say after Krishna and Balaram killed him and everything else, the whole atmosphere is changing and everybody feels so happy now. Now a Akrura can be, servant of Krishna and Balaram, ready, to direct everybody else to carry out their orders and so on like that. It's like Mathura has come to its natural situation with Krishna and Balaram present like that. So he relieved the burden of the world and performed this superhuman feat of killing Kamsa. It was so powerful. I mean, was it Putana, Mustika, Janura, who else? Vyomasura, Trinavarta. So many of these very, very powerful wizards. Ristasura, very powerful. We can guess they weren't serving Kamsa out of love or anything, mostly out of greed and fear. So Kamsa was kind of the king of the devils, and then Krishna killed him. Slide number 9. So Dwarka, because I guess by now Krishna has finished his Mathura pastimes and gone to Dwarka, and Prabhupada's saying that they perform so many activities to elevate the world. So if you can see it on the top left is this very beautiful, painting of Krishna entering Dwarka, and they give some idea of what it was. A beautiful island. Of course, our perspective is that the world was much bigger then. Like if you have an apple and you put it in the sun in the desert, it'll shrink to this little shriveled up rock. And things that are far apart will come together, and and things will get lost in the wrinkles. So we're looking at a Kali Yuga version of the world. But when Krishna was here, the distances from Dwarka from the coast were probably greater, and everything was subtler and finer and more reactive and active. So this is a picture of Krishna entering Dwarka. And of course he's being escorted by someone like Maharaj Śūrasena. And it says the rich and prosperous Vaishyas were coming and offering gifts. And the royal order were, of course, parading with them in so many ways. And then ladies were throwing flowers and auspicious chanting and so on. And of course, the natural beauty of the island, probably with waterfalls and forests and different hills, was taken of all the advantage by Vishvakarma to produce a beautiful, pleasure palace, pleasure city, like that. So Krishna established Dwarka, and under the picture on the right, we have a old BBT picture of Krishna, maybe entering Dwarka or someplace like that. Next picture. Number 10. Okay. So actually, as soon as Krishna had established Dwarka with his pastimes to elevate everybody's prosperity, he took off because he got a letter from one princess, Rukmini, inspiring him to come and kidnap her. And of course, she was a young girl, maybe 12 years old or something, but a Kshatrini, and so on. So Krishna also was I think he said he couldn't sleep at night thinking of Rukmini, a young fellow and young girl, and just full of love and affection, appreciation for each other, so on. So Krishna, of course, then went to where was this? The city, I'm not sure where it was, and kidnapped Rukmini. She made a very, very clever plan, being the daughter of a king. Then she was out of the palace, going to the Durga temple. Would be a good time to do the deed. So Krishna, of course, snatched her right up onto his chariot. All the rest of the princes, some of them have fallen off their horses seeing her beauty like that. I guess this is every girl's desire. And when she walks down the street, the boys just pass out when you see her. But Rukmini was like that. She had green eyes and beautiful figure. So all of them were thinking that she was just meant for them. And who was it? Shishupal was there, his father Damagosh, to protect, to guarantee that Krishna didn't show up, and her brother Rukmi. So Krishna took her right onto the chariot, like a lion who takes his share of the eatables amidst the jackals. And someone was saying this is what also every girl's dream. There's one phrase that it says, Prabhupada says that women are fond of men who are expert at rape. And so one of the Maharajas was saying, if you look at probably the older meaning of the word, it didn't mean like bruises and that kind of stuff. It meant just like this of being swept off your feet by some handsome man like that. And she was pointing out that you look at the book stand, you'll see this one romance novel after another with this kind of scene going on, being swept off your feet by a handsome fellow, And then they were doing this in Los Angeles. They've heard the drama. It was Los Angeles. And Kala Chan told me this. And they were doing the kidnapping of Rukmini. And they came to this point of the thing, and then Prabhupada kind of just stood up and something and said, and she wasn't a timid girl. She grabbed the reins from her husband and started driving the horses and getting escaping like that. So Krishna could start shooting arrows at these rascals like that, so on. And she said Trini like that, equal to her husband and supporting her great husband. So Krishna won her and took her back to Dwarka. And of course, things settled down. In the beginning, the father was a little upset that his son had been degraded and this and that. But actually, he wanted to marry her to Krishna anyway. So when the actual marriage ceremony came, he came, and everybody came like that. So Krishna came home with a beautiful princess. And of course, a beautiful princess means, opulence, wealth, prosperity, alliance with a very wonderful family. Okay, next slide, number 11. Now, Mr. Pushkar's painting, it looks like to me, and here it looks like a Satrajit, after having everything settled with all this story of the Shamtaka jewel, is coming to deliver his daughter, Satyabhama, and the Shamtaka jewel to Krishna. Like that, they're both being offered to Krishna. And she was the second? She was the second. Actually, she was the third. But first Rukmini, then Jambavati, then Satyabhama. And Jambavati seems more like a more shy girl there. But we know that Rukmini's mood is Chandravali's mood, but it's prominent in Dwarka. And Satyabhama's mood is Radharani's mood, which is contrary, hot-tempered, which is secondary in Dwarka. And of course, in Vidagdha Madhava, Lalita Madhava, this whole description of who they are and the whole story like that, and how they were, about to die in separation and appreciating each other, Satyabhama and Rukmini finally, and so many very exciting stories of love and romance like that, So Krishna, of course, Maharaj Satrajit was a great devotee of the sun god, and he got the jewel. And whenever he would go to the city, people would think he was actually the sun god because of his effulgence, which wasn't surprising because at that time, everybody from all over the universe was coming to Dwarka. And so Krishna informed him with Satrajit, and he told him he should give the jewel to Maharaj Ugrasena, or Śūrasena? I guess Ugrasena, because he was king. And he didn't do it, though. He kept it. He was a little materialistic. He says he was within the jurisdiction of Dwarka. So was he actually on the island, or was he off the island nearby or something? But anyway, he kept the jewel, and it was like a sweating or perspiring gold, like that. And they had so much opulence for worship. Then one time his younger brother, Prarsena, was showing off the jewel and riding around on a horse. And he went off into the forest with it, and a lion attacked him. Now this is kind of curious, because if the lion attacked the horse, Prarsena was a Kshatriya, so he should have got a good shot at the lion, even if he killed the horse. And if it came at him, then you'd think the horse would have had half the brain in his head and got out of there. But anyway, it killed both of them. So our body count, first Prarsena died, and the horse died. That's 2. And then, of course, Krishna was being blasphemed, and there's a whole story about this, of him looking at Shani during, some eclipse of the moon or something. But anyway, so he decided he had to go and clear his good name. So he went off, headed here and there, and he found the the cave of the lion. The lion was dead. So there were three in our body count. And Jambavan, apparently, there's some rumor, had taken the jewel. And he proved himself king of the beasts because he'd fought the lion with bare hands and defeated him. So then Krishna followed the path with the respectable citizens. It came to a cave. He knew the citizens would be afraid to go in. So he asked them to stay outside. It's interesting. Sometimes Krishna, Guru, they may ask us something and because they know our level of advancement. And if we want to, challenge or say, no, we'll come and follow or something, okay, So sometimes Krishna and Guru don't always, like with Narada Muni is kind of challenging Dhruva. You should go home, but then he wanted to deny his instructions and then push on for his objective like that. So Krishna went inside, fought with Jambavan for, I think it was 28 days and nights, and he got the Shamtaka jewel back, and also Jambavati. Okay. So he came home with her, second beautiful princess, and of course the alliance of Jambavan, and the jewel. And it went here and there, and Satyajit finally delivered to Krishna along with Satyabhama. Then Shatadanva, he killed Maharaj Shatrajit because the jewel went back to him. So our body count reaches 4 at this point. And later on, Krishna, of course, killed Shatadanva, so 5, So at least as far as we know, there are 5 dead bodies related to this Chamtaka jewel, which is not uncommon. Many times these great jewels have a whole string of dead bodies attached to them. Okay, next slide. Number 12. Yeah. Then, of course, one day in the assembly house of Dwarka, which I think is called Sudama, and there's no influence of hunger, thirst, old age, lamentation, or disease there, some unknown man appeared at the door, and he was invited in. He revealed himself to be a representative of something like 16,000 or something, so many innumerable kings and princes from around the world who had all been defeated by Śūrasena, yeah. And they were all being locked up there as prisoners to be used as human sacrifices to Kali Bhairav. How it goes? Somewhere over there. I guess Bhaumasura. Bhaumasura kidnapped the princesses. Yeah. Okay. So they're all there held for his carnal desires, it says, with Bhaumasura. So somebody else, who appealed on their behalf? Well, I guess, Bhaumasura. Bhaumasura was caught. Indra came from Bhaumasura, right? And because he'd stolen Aditi's earrings, the mother of the demigod, he stole a parasol from Indra or something like that. And so Krishna went there and defeated Bhaumasura, who was also known as Narakasura, and then released all the queen princesses. And they all gave their hearts to Krishna as soon as he saw them, and he accepted them. So then there are 16,000 beautiful princesses, all were married to Krishna, came back to Dwarka. And, of course, all their daddies, I'm sure, gave wonderful dowry. So, like he says, increasing the prosperity and happiness of the world. And I would say at some point it becomes so great that it just overflows and starts to become an interest in spiritual prosperity and spiritual happiness, that Krishna is happy in his house. In so many pastimes, of course, Narada, the picture on the right, he came and then started visiting all the different houses of Krishna. I don't know if he visited all 16,108 or whatever, but he was visiting, and it describes in this house Krishna was getting somebody married. In this house he was practicing fighting with swords and shields. In this house he was riding on beautiful Sind horses. This house he was receiving a new bride home like that. This house he was taking meals and being massaged. So he himself showed, the opulence of the spiritual world, and of course our natural opulence is to participate in that with service. When we have some service, we feel so happy, like that. Remember Jayananda, he would say that it doesn't matter, so much like you're doing some big service which is going to have some big result, or you're participating in some giant scheme. by this service. But it's always be engaged in some service. That's his idea. Just find something you can do anytime. Okay, just do something. Maybe clean this or do that. And if you do that, then that's the best way to get purified and to get connected up with, intense and profoundly harmonizing service, integrated with the big picture of Krishna's plans. Okay. So Narada came and saw all this prosperity in Dwarka. Next slide. And yes. Okay, so number 13. And here's one beautiful picture of Dwarkadish. Such a beautiful deity. I think this was it's either, what is it, Mathuradish or Dwarkadish is on the cover of the second volume of the original Krishna books. And that was the first big book I got, and so impressed, the picture. The thing was, it was all transcendently intoxicating. I didn't know why, but it was just so strange and just like supernatural, like that and so on. So Dwarkadish, there's this picture there. The beautiful crowns and jewels. There's Aishwarya Bhava. Where in Vrindavan there's only flowers and flower cottages and bracelets made from flowers and vests, made of beautiful soft flowers with different fragrances and so on. But Dwarka is the land of opulence and prosperity. And down below, so many little statues of cows and calves. And Krishna would go out on his daily activities like that with people fanning him with tamaras. And it's described, in the morning he would get up, the birds would start singing, the roosters would start crowing. Cock-a-doodle-doo if you're from America. Cray-cray kimomo if you're from Manipur. And this is one very, very nice project. Somebody can collect what the rooster says around the world, like that. So anyway, whatever they would say in Dwarka, they would say. And Krishna, even though he was embraced by Rukmini, the goddess of fortune, he would get up, and Rukmini would curse the Brahma Muhurta and curse the roosters. And so you can see, because of that roosters don't have much money, like that. Always bereft of money, because they were cursed by Rukmini. So anyway, he would go up and he would wash his hands and feet and mouth. And he would sit down and meditate on himself. Now, Prabhupada says there wasn't much choice for Krishna because he's the cause of all causes. So whether it's Paramatma, Brahman, or Bhagavan, is the object of worship. In any case, he's all of them. So anyway, he meditated on himself. But Prabhupada says, as far as we're concerned, we should meditate on Radha Krishna during the Brahma Muhurta, which is 96 minutes till 48 minutes before dawn. If you look on the Wikipedia, you'll find like a list of the Muhurtas with their names, which is maybe fairly accurate. And it gives whether they are auspicious, inauspicious, or whatever. So Brahma Muhurta is for Brahman, the absolute truth, the all-expansive. And it's the 2 Muhurtas until 1 Muhurta before dawn, 96 minutes until 48 minutes. 48 minutes means there's 30 Muhurtas exactly in one day. You have 24 hours, 30 Muhurtas. So Krishna would get up, he'd meditate. Then as the sun came out, he would take a bath, dress himself in garments. Then see all kinds of people receive gifts. And with the gifts, he would give first to respectable personalities and later to the queens and servants. And if any was left, he would use it for himself. Then he would see touch auspicious things like jewels, fire, honey, ghee, gold, for the welfare of all living entities. And then go to see statues of the cow and calf and temples and worship demigods. And then somewhere along the line, he gets to have a little breakfast and go off to work in the assembly house of Swadharma, Sudharma. Then also here we have in this one, you see it as a very, very nice picture also of Krishna and Balaram entering Dwarka. This was on a nice Leela book published in England. It's out of print now. I believe about 4 or 5 stories for juvenile level audience, but nice, very nice, and beautiful illustrations, different painters illustrating different stories. I forgot the devotee who published it, but this picture is blown up, so many details. Of course, Krishna and Balaram were in the center entering. They got down off their chariot to walk. maybe after coming back, from Kurukshetra. I think the banner inside the arch says Jai Shri Krishna. And you can see so many, terraces, and everybody was packed on them to see Krishna. And back up to the right are some very, very austere, simple sannyasis like that, just offering their blessings. And down the front are two boys, the garland, they're walking up like that, the irresistible sweetness to offer to Krishna. And in the background, some ladies and people, prosperous people like that. So you can just appreciate, what it was like, some idea of just the whole ambience of just the energy. Every place you looked was Krishna conscious in Dwarka. Everything stimulating you to become purified. And again, of course, people having, bodies much more suitable for the execution of devotional service. It says it in Dwarka, by regularly seeing Krishna and Balaram every day when they would come out for things like that and so forth, so on, all the old people were filled with youthful energy. Okay, let's go on to our next slide. And here we have Krishna enters Dwarka. This is number 14. This is Śrīmad Bhagavatam 1:11, 1-3, describing Krishna enters Dwarka. Śūrasena Swami said, upon reaching the border of his most prosperous metropolis, known as the country of the Anartas, Dwarka, the Lord sounded his auspicious conch shell, heralding his arrival and apparently pacifying the dejection of the inhabitants. The white and fat-bowled conch shell, being gripped by the hands of the Lord and sounded by him, appeared to be reddened by the touch of his transcendental lips. It seemed that a white swan was playing in the stems of red lotus flowers. Of course, Krishna's fingers are compared to the red lotus flowers. The citizens of Dwarka, having heard that sound, which threatens fear personified, is in the material world, began to run towards him fast, just to have a long-desired audience with the Lord, who is the protector of the devotees. What's that verse? Garbhadevari narinam vilyanti sahasrada tavanadal panchanjay panchanjanmunamostute. That the sound of the panchanjani conch shell protects the children of the babies and causes abortions and miscarriages to the horrible offspring of the devils. Aha. Very personal. Slide 15. Okay. Slide 15, Śrīmad Bhagavatam 1:11, 4-5, continuing here. The citizens arrived before the Lord with their respective presentations, offering them to the fully satisfied and self-sufficient one, who by his own potency incessantly supplies others. These presentations were like the offering of a lamp to the sun. Yet the citizens began to speak in ecstatic language to receive the Lord, just as wards welcome home their guardian and father. So it's always struck me, this scene like that. I think in the entire first canto, mostly it's very much with Aishwarya Bhava and great respect. Krishna is leaving Hastinapur, and the ladies are offering prayers to him as they remember him before the creation of the universe. It's like Mahavishnu. And Vishnu's prayers are also, the four-headed form of Vishnu with respect. But here, when Krishna enters Dwarka, we see such beginnings of more sweeter rasas. I was thinking about this. And the next slide, number 16, and we have some things we picked up of homecoming after the battle. And maybe the one on the right is maybe like right after World War II, when everybody was coming home. In the left, we have a couple pictures. Probably looks more like Iraq War or Vietnam War. that kind of stuff. And you can catch a little bit of the reflection of the feeling in a pure sense like that. At the top is a father with his little son. He's got to put his hat on him and embracing him. Yeah, because you don't know if your daddy's coming home or not. That's just a fact. And down a very cute picture of two little girls, cute little girls, in their daddy's arms and like that. Affection like that. So as a kind of scene we're thinking of is just that, like maybe the fathers had to go on some oil contract, working in Saudi Arabia for 9 months. He's been away, and the kids are communicating by telephone every now and again or something like that, and so on, with some letters and stuff. But finally, after this whole time, he's coming back, and so his wife, to her sister, and to go down with her to the airport. The kids are all dressed up, in finery, and finally the daddy comes off the airport, and of course they're about to explode, and they want to tell him everything that happened. We got a new cat. His name is Fred, and this and that. So they're saying the citizens of Dwarka the same way, just like stumbling over their words just to talk to Krishna. And this very much is Dasya Ras. But Dasya Ras is like 3 different kinds, I think. One kind is like appointed people like Brahmā, who do their job. Another kind is more like servants, who do their job. And then finally there's Dasya Ras, this sense of with Krishna as the father, like that and stuff. And of course this higher kind of Dasya Ras is where you start to see this intense feeling of being totally protected and safe, like that. And then having somebody who you can, you can give all your affection and love and discoveries to, and then they fully appreciate them like that. And Krishna's not pretending. He really does like all the creative and funny things and the troubles that, and challenges that his children and everybody else goes through like that, so on. So when Krishna enters Dwarka, of course, this is real auspiciousness and prosperity. Next slide. And after seeing, it was interesting because out in the outskirts he met some people, and different officials and Brahmins, I think, were coming first, and people like that. And of course, there's a very famous verse of many famous and well-known and famous prostitutes coming on various vehicles. So I had this kind of view, maybe coming on tricycles and skateboards or something like that. Of course, I think in general, when probably uses the word prostitute, our translation would be what's the word, courtesan, and prostitute for us is a low class word, which I don't think even in Dwarka even existed at that time. It's just like eating meat, is like that and so on. So these courtesans were coming, all very beautiful, and so on. And everybody, different citizens bringing everything. And then when he arrived in Dwarka, and he went and saw the elderly family members, everybody else, of course, there's so much in ecstasy, embracing him just like their sons, and all the wives of Vasudeva. I think he had 16 wives, And then finally he entered into the palaces, and here we see this description of this scene. And of course the queens are one of the highest examples of devotional service. The kind they take a body, which will, be attractive to Krishna and satisfying to Krishna, their very body. Then after that, their attitude and mentality. Of course, they're filled with eager anticipation to associate with Krishna, but at the same time filled with a very, very shyness and and purity. So of course they see Krishna and they embrace him within their eyes like that, just drag him within their heart. But even still not satisfied, so they send their children. And of course then Krishna embraces the son. So the embrace of the son is like the embrace of the wife, like that. It's a very subtle, interactions of emotions. A very beautiful scene. I think this was, kind of taken, Krishna, the princesses were kind of put into the scene here as another picture. But you can appreciate, again, the opulence and prosperity and happiness, of Dwarka, increasing at different levels. Okay, slide number 18. Then Krishna was there. After Kurukshetra, there was actually a long period of nothing but happiness. A lot of tennis games on the roof and picnics, and building things and doing things. And somebody, I guess every day somebody was showing up with something. So one day Sudama came, Krishna's old classmate. And I don't know about you, I try to avoid it because I'm Maya or something, but also kind of look at people who were my classmates and stuff like that in college or something, try and track them down. And several of them are dead. They've already gone to their destination. And I'm feeling already, I'm right down the trail behind them. So Krishna, of course, here's Sudama, who I guess he hasn't seen for a long time. Of course, they're exchanging all their remembrance of their pastimes and everything else. And the queens are just amazed because Krishna normally only embraces Balaram and Rukmini. And here he's embracing this Brahmana who doesn't even look very prosperous or even well kept in many ways. So you must realize he must be a very special person. So then Rukmini, of course, starts serving him, this Brahmana, directly. And he asks, "Do you have anything for me?" And he's a little ashamed to say, "I have some parched rice or something." But Krishna knows, so he just grabs it out of his wrapper and takes a morsel and starts to eat it. And Sudama is shocked and everything else. Then Krishna starts to eat the second morsel. And of course, Rukmini holds his hand and says, "Oh my goodness, if you take a second morsel or whatever, the third, whatever it is, it will be impossible for me to reciprocate and award this Brahmana, what he deserves for having served you." So Krishna desists, And Sudama I feel like he's floating in the spiritual world, but he goes back the next morning and so happy without having certainly got anything from Krishna. But when he arrives, his wife appears like a goddess of fortune. Their little Brahminical situation is now turned into an opulent palace. There's so many maid and manservants are there to help them. So again, Krishna has increased the prosperity and happiness of everybody. But the happiness is that he never takes it for bhoga. He takes it all to be offered to Krishna, to use in his service like that, somehow or other. And Krishna is so great; he needs so much service to illuminate him, to glorify him. So when you see the deities, we just see they're just so beautiful, transcendentally, unlimitedly, and you can just focus on each little thing, and glorify and illuminate it. So every day in Dwarka, these things were happening, and one day Sudama showed up. And let's go in here. Next slide, which will be number 19. And so after this verse, Vidura is asking Uddhava about Krishna and Balaram. Because if they're happy, then everybody else is happy. That's just the way it works. The next he'll ask about Vasudeva, Krishna's father, and Pradyumna, the leader of all of Krishna's sons, Ugrasena, Krishna's grandfather and the head of the Yadus, Samba, who's actually an incarnation of somebody, I think who it is, Kartikeya, like that, and one of Krishna's sons by Jambavati, and Yuyudhan, who is Satyaki, Krishna's commander-in-chief, and the student of Arjuna. Then Apura, older personality, of course, very much involved. He was Ugrasena's commander-in-chief. Devaki, Aniruddha, that is son so prominent and swarthy. He married Usha. And then Hridika, Charadeshna, Gada, Maharaj Yudhisthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, Sahadev, and Kunti, and Dhritarashtra. So one after another he'll ask about all of them. And he already knows. I was just looking the other day, it was like Walter Cronkite. He was looking at biographies. And he was like the anchor man for one NBS News, CBS News, or NBC News, whatever, for 17 years. And considered to be the most trusted man in America. But he had to announce the death of Lyndon Baines Johnson, of John F. Kennedy. And of course, that's a overwhelming task to announce the death of someone like John F. Kennedy, the entire president, to the entire population and the world and everything else like that. And so it's like, something you have to hear. You heard it, but just know you have to hear it heart to heart. So, to hear all these things from Uddhava and to ask about them all and put them in proportion, to hear them again and again till finally it just starts to sink in. And one can understand from a very deep perspective what's happening, and then maybe understand one's whole position like that. Of course, on the right we have a little picture of the moon and the stars, because that's how it was. Krishna and Balaram were compared to like the moon, and all the rest, the Yadus and Vrishnis, Bojas, Andaks, Sattvatas, and the Gurus were different stars, beautiful, brilliant personalities. Even Duryodhana, for example, we watched the Peter Brook Mahabharata, and the actor who plays Duryodhana, good job. Good job. And one very, very nice scene, Duryodhana is unhappy, and his mother Gandhari says, call for your wives, call for your wives. And he says, no, I want to feel discontent. He says, a man grows and everybody's happy. He says, I have enough to eat and enough to clothes to cover my body. Shame. Yeah. He says, I'm growing and my desire for power is growing too. Very nice presentation of this mentality, the desire for wealth, prestige, power. So even in terms of devils, Duryodhana was quite a devil, And so, but Krishna was just, more prominent than anybody else, Different people. It's also described that the Yadus who dined with Krishna, slept with him, joked with him, they could no more appreciate who he was than the fish can appreciate what is the moon, like that, in the water. So very, very nice, reflections by Uddhava at this point, by Vidura, stimulation, and of course, and after that, just incredible, recollections by Uddhava, on these pastimes and what's happening. And then finally, Moshe Leela, and this beautiful picture on the internet of all of Dwarka, just sinking into the ocean and all the palaces and everything else. Of course, it's like terrifying, and another aspect of Krishna's opulence is, and so destroying it all, and maybe to create permanent opulence, because even though it was the manifest presence was destroyed, Krishna is still available as Dwarkadish, worship there, beautiful deity of him. And slide 21. Yeah, nice picture we found. This looks like maybe like during the British Raj or something, boats there and people hanging out, and maybe some kind of picture of Dwarka or something, the temple which is there now on the beach or something. So there, all these pastimes and activities are still available, in this world, and available at these locations by stimulation, meditation, appreciation, like that. So Krishna still is increasing the opulence and happiness of the world by keeping these holy places and so on available, like that. The great devotees like Srila Prabhupada. Okay, next slide. Let's finish off here. This is Srimad Bhagavatam 9, 10, 51, 53. And I think it's how Lord Ramachandra ruled the world. Lord Ramachandra became king during Treta Yuga, but because of his good government, the age was like Satya Yuga. Everyone was religious and completely happy. During the reign of Lord Ramachandra, the forests, rivers, hills, and mountains, the states, the 7 islands, and the 7 seas were all favorable in supplying the necessities of life for all living beings. When Lord Ramachandra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was the king of this world, all bodily and mental suffering, disease, old age, bereavement, lamentation, distress, fear, and fatigue were completely absent. There was even no death for those who did not want it. You can click one more time on the side. It hasn't come up already, the little extract. This is the purport then to, I think, the first verse. Among the 4 yugas, Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali, the Kali Yuga is the worst. But if the process of Varna Ashram Dharma is introduced, even in this age of Kali, the situation of Satya Yuga can be invoked. The Hare Krishna movement or Krishna consciousness movement is meant for this purpose. Vaishnava culture. Yeah. Okay, next slide. And then Prabhupada continues in the same purport. Kaler dosha niderajan asti hi eko mahan gunach kirtanar eva krishnasya mukta sangach parang vrajet. My dear King, although Kali Yuga is full of faults, Kalo dosha niderajan, there is still one good quality, eko mahan guna, about this age. Simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, one can become free from material bondage and be promoted to the transcendental kingdom. Jai. Hare Krishna Maha Mantra ki jai. Slide 24. Prabhupada continues. If people take to this Sankirtan movement of chanting the Hare Krishna Hare Rama, they will certainly be freed from the contamination of Kali Yuga, and the people of this age will be happy. Happy, happy, happy. As people were in the Satya Yuga, the golden age. Anyone, anywhere, can easily take to this Hare Krishna movement. One need only chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, observe the rules and regulations, and stay free from the contamination of sinful life. Next slide. Prabhupada continues his purport. Even if one is sinful and cannot give up sinful life immediately, if he chants the Hare Krishna mantra with devotion and faith, he will certainly be freed from all sinful activity, and his life will be successful. Param vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. This is the blessing of Lord Ramachandra, who has appeared in this age of Kali as Lord Gaurasundar. Shishi Ganga Mahaprabhu ki jai. And on the right-hand side, we have this very, very nice picture we found somewhere of us Malcolm Dead Kirtan from Bengal or something. It's so nice. A lot of flags. That makes it really important in the Harinam. A lot of flags. Otherwise, it looks like some kind of, work protest or something. And people are falling on the ground in Kirtan and everything else like that. So, devotees chanting, and then people will become purified and become like Satya Yuga. Fruits, flowers, trees, everything else like that. And so on. So Krishna and Balaram are increasing the prosperity of the world, and they also are increasing the prosperity of their own leelas. Thank you very much. Last slide there. Hare Krishna. All glories to Prabhupada. So any questions, complaints, comments?
Hari. I like the military. They cheer when they declare war.
Oh my God.
When the war is over, they cheer louder. They're more happy when it's peace.
Yeah.
But this is an ashram dharma in reverse. The Vaishyas, for their profits, are sending their country's young men to die for their profits.
Wow, yeah.
I have one thing in Vishwanath Chakrabarti, the chronology of the 10th canto. It goes like this. Since Srimad Bhagavatam, this is in 10th canto, Sarartha Darshini, it's a long one, but I'm not going to speak too long. And this is a commentary in text, in the killing of Danta Vakra Vidurata Ramaharshana chapter, verses 13 through 15. But just the last paragraph says, since Srimad Bhagavatam does not describe how Krishna Brajalila ended, the account given in the Padma Puran should be accepted as true. Thus, Sri Vaishnav Toshini, Sanatana Goswami, 10th canto, following sequential list of pastimes. First was the journey on the occasion of the solar eclipse, when the Rajasuya assembly, with Kurukshetra. Then the gambling match, because they were all friends then, Andavas and Kauravas. Then the gambling match. and attempted disrobing of Draupadi. Then the Pandavas' exile in the forest, then the killing of Salvadantavakra, then Krishna visits Vrindavan and winding up with the Vrindavan pastime. So that's the order. Because Srimad Bhagavatam is out of chronological order. Because Prabhupada mentioned some of these pastimes happen on other planets.
Yeah, or else that's why even it doesn't have to be in crime. I mean, Mars Rick's asking questions, so not asking. Sometimes he's asking to have for certain points to be illustrated or why this happened.
So it's hard to follow the what's going on in the chronological history.
Wow. So I guess you got to be there. Wow. And Dantavakra was the last demon to be killed, right? Yeah. Well, under
Krishna arranged that so that he would be near Mathura.
Yeah, near Mathura. Yeah. Then he expanded himself in two parts. Like one part went back.
One goes back. That's another.
Yeah. Other part went to Vrindavan. There's a whole pastime. He went there.
When Pushkar finishes the Gopal Champu, maybe we'll do that. That connects all the dots.
Yeah. Wow.
When Dvarka was destroyed, is it that it sunk into the sea, or the sea, like at a tidal wave, or how did it happen?
I don't know exactly. I mean, that the actual architectural project now they're discovering. Dr. Rao.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Discovering, gigantic stones and everything else, and something definitely, was going on there, and the size of it and everything else, and so on like that. So many things. But there's not a lot of money available for it, and so they can't do a lot of research. I don't know if he's even still going on or not. Yeah, I had a chance to talk to him personally. It was very interesting. They had a scoop about the size of a taxi cab or something in a big barge that would pull sand. They can pull the sand up with a scoop and move it out of the side. But every time the tide came in and came out, it moved this whole wave of sand, like something like 35 feet tall or something. So when the tide would come in and out there, everything they'd done would be covered over again. But gradually, through few divers, they found the whole circumference and stuff like that. And they started finding relics. But definitely, there was definitely something there. And it wasn't just fairy tales. Yeah. Okay.
That was a beautiful presentation. Really focuses in your mind on all of Krishna's pastimes. You went through the whole thing from the beginning to the end.
Well, parts of it. So many other pastimes. Yeah. I mean, I was doing all this at 40 below zero, so 40 below freezing here.
Actually, you touched on an interesting point. I hesitate to ask you to elaborate on it because you're a sannyasi. But anyway, at risk, I'll ask the question because you brought something that interests me, and that was that you were sort of indicating that the prostitutes that existed in the time of Krishna perhaps were very different than the prostitutes of today.
Well,
I was wondering if you could elaborate.
I spoke on that.
There we go.
Okay.
We got.
This is a great question. It's very good. Indians call any woman that's not married, they say prostitute.
Okay.
And Prabhupada also. So we would call, let's say, Marilyn Monroe a prostitute. It doesn't mean they're streetwalkers or Lady Gaga. These are superstars.
Yeah.
But they're not married. They don't have a house. They don't have a husband and a family and cook. So these are superstar women that were courtesans, and they're very highly, or like the geisha, But to imply that if they're not in the varnashram dharma exactly, but they call them prostitutes. But there's no other word to really use for that. I would say courtesan might be better, but these were because it says that famous prostitutes were in the procession when Krishna enters Dwarka.
Yeah.
So these were big celebrities.
Prabhupada says in California, he says, he said, now you call them girlfriends.
Someone called Indira Gandhi a prostitute. She was no longer married, and she's the prime minister, for God's sake. So they say she's a prostitute.
That's it. I just never thought about that before, and I just one of those things I always just let slide. You know, why there's prostitutes and why they were glorified, actually.
Probably there's this natural tendency for people and attractions there for some people, and somehow or other, even says, well, it's a story, right? You said even in his own family life, there were serving girls in the house who would help clean and stuff.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
And also slaves.
Yeah.
When Americans think of slavery, we think of our terrible black kidnapping. But a slave in India is they were like members of the family.
Yeah.
Even in Egypt, the Jews, the day before the Exodus, Moses tells all the women, Jewish women, borrow as much jewelry as you can from the ladies of the houses that you serve in. They were slaves.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of slave can borrow jewelry from the mistress? Because the next day they were leaving with all the jewelry. But what kind of slaves can say, "Madam, can I borrow the pearl necklaces and the diamonds?"
When it's not there, when this institution is not there, what happens? So many people they're not taken care of.
Exploitation.
They naturally fall into intoxication. So what happens? They go to prison and they become slaves. They do all kinds of. Usually they're engaged in some kind of work and activity, that kind of stuff.
And the
slaves in the house, they become slaves of the state.
It might be a sloka. The servant enjoys as much as the master.
But Prabhupada says actually sometimes even more.
Yeah. There was a movie.
I think for us to try and understand this whole Varna Ashram thing and implement it, because Prabhupada he said that's what Ramachandra is going to come when we take it to Varna Ashram. But
there was a devotee in Los Angeles who he paid for a lady's dental work, about $2,000, and he said, "Well, you don't have to pay me back, but you can clean my house, once or twice a week." So I said, "That's an indentured slave."
Yeah, and that's how America started, right?
Because you fixed your but he paid for her dental work, indentured.
That's what I mean. It's the same thing in America. Oh, okay, all right.
Okay, we'll be out of here early. We don't have to repeat.
There's a stage leaving in 15 minutes. You should be on it. Okay, so now it's just another show. Leave them laughing when you go. So I guess we'll go ahead here and we're supposed to call up our North American Ministry of Education regional representative. And
how do you deal with the cold 40-degree weather there?
Oh, it only happens at night. During the daytime, it comes up to something below freezing. But we just follow the mayor's advice and stay inside.
Wow.
Yeah. The first day I tried to move the car. It took me 30 minutes to get the ice off the car to get it rolling, and then I gave up on it. Yeah. Wow. But it's just a cold snap. It's not normal. And this is probably the last time it'll happen. After that, we'll start getting some regular spring weather and can get back to work.
Yeah.
Get out to the post office. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Maharaj.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This is very wonderful for me. Hare Krishna.
Bye. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Haribol.